Hi, I'm Bill, the Domestic Monk. Welcome back to another video and thanks very much for watching. I've mentioned many times on this channel that I never had what I would consider a mystical or supernatural religious experience. We know that many saints have had such experiences, including visions of Jesus, like St. Teresa of Lisieux and St. Catherine of Siena, or visions of the Blessed Mother, like St. Bernadette of Lourdes and the visionaries at Fatima, or interactions with an earlier saint, like St. Joan of Arc's famous dialogues with St. Catherine of Alexandria, St. Margaret of Antioch, and of course, St. Michael the Archangel. And even, heaven forbid, encounters with evil spirits like St. Anthony of the Desert and, of course, famously St. Padre Pio, for example. I also know many credible people, my wife included, that claim to have had experienced an inner voice speaking to them that they identified with either God or Jesus. Just a few weeks ago, I was blessed to be able to assist with a vocations retreat at Conception Monastery and Seminary in northern Missouri. It was a retreat for young men discerning a vocation to the priesthood. I got to hear the testimony of several of the young men currently in the seminary who talked about a feeling of profound peace or an inner voice while they were in prayer that helped them to decide to enter the seminary and the religious life. These were very moving testimonies and filled me with great hope for the future of the priesthood, knowing that there are young men like this in the pipeline. I'm 61 years old and a cradle Catholic and have spent a considerable amount of time attending Mass or in prayer, and even some time in adoration before the Blessed Sacrament. But I've never really experienced anything like that. I've experienced feelings of peace in prayer or at Mass, of course, but nothing I would consider to be a supernatural religious experience. But it turns out I did have an experience back in 2020 that I'd completely forgotten about until a couple of weeks ago. I was reminded of it while I was listening to an episode of The Journey Home while I was mowing the lawn. The Journey Home is an EWTN program where they interview people from other faith traditions who have come home to the Catholic Church. In the episode that I was listening to, the gentleman being interviewed experienced something similar to what happened to me, and it caused me to remember that I did in fact have one religious supernatural experience after all. I'm going to share that with you now. Before moving to Tennessee, I lived in Orange County, California for about 40 years. In 2019, I started working for the Diocese of Orange as a member of the Bishop Security Team. We provided security for the bishop, his two auxiliary bishops, and for Christ Cathedral, which was formerly Robert Schuller's Crystal Cathedral, and it now serves as a cathedral for the County of Orange. In early March of 2021, there was a tragic shooting at the Immaculate Heart of Mary Catholic Church in Santa Ana, California. It arose out of some kind of domestic violence incident, and it culminated with the male party running into the church, where he was ultimately killed in a shootout with police. When an incident like this occurs and a church is desecrated, the bishop will celebrate a mass of reparation to reconsecrate it as a place of worship. We did that in March of 2021. A few days before the Mass, some of us toured the church to get the layout and decide how we were going to approach the assignment. Behind the altar is a curved wall that separates the altar from the sacristy behind it, as you can see in the photo on the screen. To the left of the altar is a statue of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, and to the right is a statue of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, which I have circled in red. There were 2 bullet holes in the wall that just missed the statue of the Blessed Mother by mere inches. On the day of the Reparation Mass, my position was in the far left corner at the back of the church. My buddy Pete was stationed in the center near the main entrance of the church. A few minutes after the Mass got underway, Pete asked me on the radio, "Do you smell that?" And I'm like, "What?" First of all, I'm like 60 or 70 feet from him, and it was a crowded Mass with a lot of people between me and him. Besides, I've got the worst sense of smell. My wife has a nose like a bloodhound, and she's always asking me, "Do you smell this? Do you smell that?" And 9 times out of 10, I don't. So Pete replies, "Roses. There's a really strong scent of roses over here." Well, I wasn't smelling any roses, and I told him so. So he tells me to come on over where he was. So I start walking over towards him in the aisle along the back of the church. And as I was approaching Pete's location, I'll be darned if I didn't start smelling the strongest, most clear scent of roses that I've ever smelled. And the scent got stronger the closer I got to the center of the church. It was like heavy, very strong, but also very pleasant. It's hard to describe. I just couldn't believe it. Also, my wife and I had a rose garden in our backyard in California. You don't smell roses by walking by them, at least I don't. I literally have to plant my nose in one to smell it. Besides, there weren't any roses present in that church that day. Believe me, we looked. In the Catholic tradition, the smell of roses has been thought to be a sign of God's presence, and it has also been associated with Marian apparitions. It wasn't just me and Pete that smelled it either. There were several other guys on the detail that day that experienced it also. But also the fact that this church, the Immaculate Heart of Mary, is named in her honor is another thing that made this incident so compelling. It was like the Blessed Mother herself was present for the reconsecration of this church. So that's it. That's my one supernatural religious experience. I hope you enjoyed listening to it, and I hope that one day, in some unique way, you will experience one of your own. If you have been fortunate enough to experience something like this, please share it with us in the comments. I know I'd love to hear about them. Finally, if you enjoyed this video, please like it and share it with others. Thanks very much for watching, and as always, siempre adelante.